to go live. We're waiting on my. There we go. Hello, Atlanta sports fans. Welcome. I have two very esteemed guests with me today. I have Mr. Brycey 2K. Feel like I should say pause every time I say Brycey. I have Bryce, my friend Bryce, with us, and I got Smitty 10K, and y'all know both of them. Bryce, Smitty, how y'all doing? How's everything going?
Everything good, man. Won't complain. Won't complain. Just another day to talk about sports, man. Atlanta Hawks dig kicking up dust, and I don't know why because they ain't made much of a move, but we're gonna get into that. But yeah, man,
Yeah,
I'm good, man. I'm good.
let's do it. Bryce, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. Just taking it day by day, and we'll look forward to because our first piece of some type of Atlanta Hawks action this Friday, and the summer league starts for us. So
I'm excited about it. I know you guys are excited about it. So, concerning the Hawks, let's get right into it. From what I saw, the Hawks had an opportunity to maybe trade Okonwu or Capella for BI, and they opted not to do that. Gentlemen, I'm going to open this up to the panel. Bryce, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that, and why didn't they do it? Just give me your thoughts.
um, I've been kind of saying when we talk about this, I said one of the reasons why they haven't made a move is first they're not trying to become a second apron team because I think adding Brandon Ingram would basically do that, and also secondly Jalen Johnson. You have to pay Jalen Johnson. You are not about to. It is very difficult in today's NBA with the new CBA to have three max players on a roster. Extremely difficult. You pretty much, most teams are going to pick two guys to pay max money to, and then you kind of just, you kind of build out the rest of your team. And I think that's why for them, trading back for BI really wasn't going to move the needle for them. I don't think BI was going to move the needle for them like we think it is. And I also just think the money's just not, it's not feasible for them. If he wasn't wanting 200 million, which he still wants, Pelicans don't want to give it to him, and no other team wants to give it to him. Are the Hawks gonna be the dumb team that gives it to him? There's a reason why nobody wants to give him that money.
Hmm.
So because I can only see if we do that and then things don't work out, now we're gonna be like, why did we pay him 200 million? So to just save all that, I think, I'm sure again, Pelicans need one of our centers. They do, but we are not going to. It has to make sense for both sides, and in a trade like that, it didn't necessarily make sense for both sides.
Okay, understood. Smitty, thoughts?
Absolutely agree. 100%. Said it on a video yesterday, man. You look at 208 million is what he's looking for. They're not gonna pay that. That first apron is enough, and we've talked about it on the show many times. They don't want to pay that extra, even though they got that exception. They don't want to spend it. They want to get back under the cap, which is why they traded Dejounte Murray to add more cap back to the team. Um, and you talk about Brandon Ingram. I said it yesterday, man. You talk about the injuries he's had the last 3-4 years. When you start to factor in injuries and he's getting older, those injuries are going to start hampering him down the road. And then a $50 million player can't afford to have him on the bench. Look at Anthony Davis, how much he's been hurt throughout his career. So you don't want a 6'9" guy that's just sitting on the bench, points just sitting there just wasting away, and you still paying him. It just don't make sense. Another thing, if they had went big man in the draft, I could absolutely see them going to get Brandon Ingram because you still need that wing guy that can create his own shot, a guy that can put up 25, 30 points any given game, somebody that's going to back Trey. So like you said, they added 3-and-D guys to put around Trey, put defense around him because we know that's his deficiency. But at the end of the day, man, when they drafted Ricochet, I think that ended all talks with Brandon Ingram. I think they were talking to New Orleans all offseason about getting that trade done. But when they asked for one of those centers who they knew they were going to keep, and we knew they were going to keep him because they haven't, when it's really signed the center, Cody Zeller was just a throw in from the trade. So everything speaks for itself, man. Like I've told y'all about Michael Penix. When they went out and started scouting him, and last 3 weeks it was all Michael Penix, Atlanta Falcons. I knew he was going to be the pick. Guess what? Soon as the draft lottery is over, what do they do here? Right overseas, go see their kid play. So they've had their mind made up for a while. So Brandon Ingram, after they figured long ago, probably 2-3 months ago, that they weren't gonna make that deal, they went for another wing player about the same size, 6'9", about what 200 pounds. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Gentlemen, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. Now, Bryce, you
Mm.
kind of referenced the cap. And to those of us who love our Hawks, but have no clue what's going on with the NBA cap, we're going to have you kind of explain this, and we're going to call this section NBA caps for dummies. I'm the dummy, by the way, not talking about you guys. Um, but if you could, right? So when I look at this, I see total cap allocations 191,490,965 smackaroos, right?
Mm.
So what is the cap for this? Is it 237 million or what is it? And I'm trying to understand if we've got this allocated for 191 million and we're over by 50 million, does
But
that
you got to think about dead contracts as well.
uh
That's the thing with the cap. You still have a couple of dead contracts on the books. So
oh,
so yeah, so and we could be talking about contracts from 5-10 years ago. So
okay,
yeah, so some contracts stay on the book for a while.
okay, okay. So looking at that negative 50 million in cap space, that means that we are 50 over. Is that correct, Bryce?
Yes, technically, it's kind of a weird thing because the NBA salary cap is set at 140 million for the season.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why it says 50 million over because we're at 190.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
All right. So it's all right. So then the first apron is 5 million over, which we've blown by, or what's the first apron space? Can you kind of explain what that is?
Um, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but basically that first apron is basically like what's been the salary cap for the new CBA, where you get into the luxury, you pay however much more per dollar that you're over in the luxury tax. That obviously comes usually from the owner. They pay that. If you stay in that, it will get more expensive over time, and it's like the regular salary cap that we've known before the new CBA has gotten into where they are now.
Okay. All right. And then the second apron space. What
Mm.
is what is that? I've been hearing people are afraid of this one. So what's the deal with
Look at
this?
the price on it.
Why,
That's a lot of money.
why,
That's a,
Yeah.
that's a that's a 2-year NBA contract for some players.
okay, so is this the penalty that you're imposed if you go over the second apron? Is
Plus the salary.
okay. Okay, so this 16 million means if you get to the second apron, you're going to be charged that. Now, is that per player or is that just for like, okay, I'm in the second apron and you're just going to charge this blanket fee. You're going to be charged this blanket fee of 16 million, or is it I'm in the second apron and I've done it twice. The
Mm.
first time I penetrated the threshold, I was charged 16 million, and the second time I penetrated the threshold, I was charged 16 million again. Is that how that goes, or is it just a blanket fee?
I think it's a more expensive feed. So I think if you're in it and you stay in it, and I think that's more for like the off season because like there are teams like Dallas got into the second apron when they traded when they made trades at the deadline, I believe. So
Tim
like,
Hardaway,
yeah, but it
one of
doesn't
those
like
guys.
impact you as much in season because you're in season. It's more for the off season. If you're there, you stay there,
Right.
or you get into that area because of salaries bumping up, things of that nature. That adds on to the money that you're spending. The major thing about the second apron that why teams are trying not to be there is more just because of the restrictions that it has on your roster.
Oh,
You are unable to sign, I think, mid level exception players. You can't sign buyout players. And basically, like, I think that I think you can still do players with bird rights that you have, and I think that's fine. But I think the guys who you don't have bird rights, those can impact you, their salaries. I think, like, I was reading a little bit on this, like, basically, like, let's say you sign a veteran to a minimum contract. If you try to keep him another year, you have to add 20% to that. So, like, if you're in that second apron. So I think, like, with that, what it basically does is it kind of restricts you. You can't, in a trade, take on more salary than you're giving out. You know what I'm saying? Like, some teams will take on more salary, but you can't in the second apron. You have to get equal or less salary,
Okay.
things of that nature. So that's why they sometimes say, like, if you're in that second apron, you may have to trade a player for nothing
Okay.
because you just can't. Realistically, if you're in it, you're not trying to stay in it. You're probably trying to cut some salary. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's one of those things where they were talking about, like, with Phoenix, like, would they have to trade a Bradley Beal or a KD or a Devin Booker for nothing potentially if things don't work out? Because it's not like you can acquire. I mean, you can acquire a good player for less money, but, like, you're not going to be able. The way you value those players, you're not just going to be able to kind of be like, oh, maybe we can take a little bit more salary on, add a couple of key players. That's why they have to be very particular about who they sign, who they bring in, because they only have so much they can do and sign with,
Okay.
and things of that nature. So it's one of those things where just basically teams are like, nobody wants to be restricted on what they could do,
Right.
because that's their way of keeping teams from getting too stacked. They felt like teams like the Clippers and teams like the Warriors under the last CBA, they were cool paying the money. That's how they're able to stay great. That's how they would get Kevin Durant. That's how they're able to just continue to add and add and add,
Yeah,
because they're
that's all I was
owners who are willing
going
to
to add to
pay.
what he was saying. Yeah, that was put in place to keep super teams down.
Yep.
That's why you see them slowly fading away. Phoenix may be the last team to put together three players with them kind of contracts. But yeah, that's a great point, Bryce. That's exactly where I was gonna go.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you have to make decisions as a team of, like, okay, what direction we want to go in. Like I said, Boston can do it because they're in a different position. They just won a
Yep.
championship and they have the bird rights of all those players. Uh, Suns didn't have the bird rights when they acquired KD and all of them. So this it's a bit different for them. They didn't have them for years before they gave him the extension. The only person they had was Devin Booker.
Right.
So that's why he's probably, like I said, least likely to go out of the three if they decided to ever blow it up, and so on and so forth. So I think that's really kind of the big thing that, I think every team, even the Hawks, are trying to basically avoid. Because, like I said, you have, and it's not just this year. You have to think about the next coming years,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to go into an offseason and now be in the second apron because other contracts are kicking in. So again, if you're going to re-sign Jalen to a max contract, you have to prepare to add whatever salary that is onto your salary cap next year, because that's when his thing will kick in. And then you got to, again, make other decisions and things of that nature.
Okay. Justin Swisher says, "Do you guys believe the Hawks are in a slow rebuild?" Smitty, I'm gonna start with you. You feel we're in a slow rebuild, or are we tooling up to do some damage next year? Like, what are your thoughts regarding that?
They've been in a slow rebuild ever since Travis Slink stepped down. Because as I tell y'all all the time, every GM wants their own style of players. Every coach wants their own style of players. So every time you switch coaches or GM, just be prepared to get new players in, because that's just the way of sports, just the way sports works. Because not every coach has the same philosophy. So it's been a slow rebuild the last 3 years. And unless they add a key piece in the next 2 years, it's gonna be the same old song. I felt like even Zach Levine's contract of $43 million, you trade Clint Capella or DeAndre Hunter to Chicago and add a first round pick, maybe their protected pick, with what they're offering, getting a first round pick and 2 second round picks back in return. I'm making that deal all day, but hey, what do I know? Those picks could speed up the rebuild. But yeah, it's a slow rebuild, and it's been that way. Like if they change coaches next year, same story.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
but one thing, but if y'all remember me saying, I know you do, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said strong foundation is everything. When you got a foundation in place,
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about a rebuild because all you're gonna do is take away pieces, add pieces, take away pieces, add pieces. Until they learn how to do that, yeah, it's gonna be the same thing year after year.
Yeah, that's biblical. Agree with that. Bryce, your thoughts? We in a rebuild, or are we stacking up for the next 2 years, or are we like the league's best kept secret? We're gonna come out here and win 60 games next year. Like, what are your thoughts? What are we doing? We in a slow rebuild? What are we doing? Where are we going?
Um, yeah, I guess you could say that for sure. I mean, it's a rebuild slash retool situation for them. Just more because of it's like the Hawks are a team that could make the postseason, but they're also a team that might not make the postseason. They're kind of just in that line of like either or, and it kind of depends on how things go. I mean, right now the Hawks are going through a youth movement right now. They're relying on a lot of youth to kind of get this team where they need to go. Which, again, you may see more teams do that in general, just because of, like I said, the salary cap situation, and obviously having bird rights is even more important now than even before. So, I think overall the team, yeah, they're this team is an interesting situation because they're kind of, I think, finally trying to build this team out the way that Quinn would like his team to be built out. Usually when you bring in new head coaches, you try to adjust the team to what the coach wants to do. Which, I mean, they kind of didn't do last year. They kind of just stood pat outside of shading JC. So, I mean, I think this is like the first year making an effort in trying to do that in some capacity, but also just giving the roster a much more healthier roster construction and a much more healthy versatility because they didn't have that last year. They couldn't play particular lineups because they just didn't have that type of uniqueness
Flexibility.
Right,
of players,
Yeah.
right.
So now, even like that's what I say. Really, trading Dyson. I mean, not trading Dyson. Trading Dejounte has kind of helped with that because now you can do more different things. You can have a defensive lineup. You can have an athletic lineup. You can have a shooting lineup. You can have a small ball lineup that still can be very effective if you wanted to, and things of that nature. So, and there's different combinations that people I'm sure have thought about. Well, what if we ran this lineup? What if we put these guys out here together? And I think that's something that they didn't have last year, and I think that's really big for this year for them. So, that's like I said, when you're relying on young players, I guess you can say it's a rebuild. Until you feel like a lot of those young players break through, like in Oklahoma City, they were in a rebuild technically till this past year when the young players broke through and they made the postseason. They were number one seed in the Western Conference. So, yeah, that's pretty much where I view where we are right now as a team.
And they got lucky because when they traded Paul George to Los Angeles, they got a superstar return. So they put, and again, they put down the foundation. They built around SGA, and you seen what he's become over the years. He was an MVP candidate last year. So if you make the right moves by trading one of your star players for another star player to build around, hey, that's what happens. So all they're doing, as I said, take away, add. So that's all they've done.
Hmm. Guys, next question. So it appears from everything that we're seeing that the Hawks are going to go the development route. Looks like the thinking is we're going to take what we have in Trey and Clint and Okonwu and Hunter and Bogey, and we're going to mesh that with some of our young guys, and we're going to develop them. And whatever happens, happens. With that being in mind, Bryce, going to start with you. Is there a clock on this rebuild? In other words, if I am the majority owner of the Hawks, right, and we come out and we basically suck big donkey hooters this year, and we win, 25 games, and we come out next year. You know what? If Jack were here, he'd be like penalty. Jack with one time for the fan. All right, so let me take a step back. We're not great this year, and I'm not predicting this. I'm just throwing this out there for the purpose of argument. We win 25 games this year. We win 30 next year. Is Quinn out? Is there a clock on this development plan? Right? Does it? And if it is a clock, is it a year? Is it two? Is it three? What are we thinking? And Smitty, I'm going to start with you. Give me your thoughts on that.
If he lose 20, if he win just 25 games this upcoming season, he gone. Because you taking 3 steps back if you only winning 25 games. That means you're not competitive. That means the team's really not buying into you. And that means they have to make more moves in the offseason to try to better this team. So the team that they're building right now at this moment, if you win 25 games, you mean you're just building a team just to be building it with um no vision, no course of where you want to go. So yeah, if he don't win, put it like this. If he don't make the play in tournament, or he's not a top 8 seed, he gone, because there's no point in keeping him. You have young coaches out here who still hungry to get their first chance, probably come in and get these young players to buy into what they're doing. And I know one name that I've talked a lot of this, Sam Cassell, who's been an assistant for ever. You get a guy like that to come in with these young players, I think he can get the best out of them. And you got to think about when they hired Snyder. Um, a guy named Ume Udoka was on the market after he got fired from Boston, who I think could have come in and done an exceptional job with his team, and he would have built that coach pop type roster like he built with the Celtics in San Antonio. And what do they like? Well, not Boston, but what does San Antonio like? European players. So I mean, it would have fit perfect. So I 25 wins, he got to go. And I hate to say that because I'm tired of seeing coach in, coach out.
Moving man, moving back. Bryce, thoughts? What you got?
Yeah, I mean, if they won 25 games, I mean, there's not really much you can do to defend it, defend Snyder and them. Plus, I mean, then it makes the front office look god awful because you move Murray and then you lost 10 more games than you did in the previous years. So that would be like a disaster if that was the case. So I mean, that kind of just equals that. But I think realistically, for the team, I mean, you brought in Quinn and he brought in the staff you brought in to develop. I think that was the number one thing they wanted when they hired Quinn, is to develop. I mean, because they needed a person who's going to invest in that. And like I said, we have evidence. Jalen improved, Hunter improved some skills, Kobe improved, Vic Krejci improved. You have multiple players who improved under him. I mean, some people even said, regardless of how the season went, Trey may have had one of his best years. So I think that you've seen that. I just think in the same time, I think you have to also look at the fact that it's one of those situations where I think you with the youth movement, you have ingredients, but you just don't know what the ingredients are going to be once they're put together in that dish. You don't
Right.
know, and I think that's why we are in this move of just, we have no idea what this season is about to bring. We don't know if we're going to be good, if we're going to be bad, if this was a good move, because a lot of the guys that we're asking to step up are younger guys, really having to, really take that first step into the rotation and be a big part of what they're trying to do. So I think that's why everybody, you're going to be like, I don't know, we all like Kobe, we all like Gay, we all like Kongu, we like Jalen, we like them, but now we understand, like, okay, depending on what they're asking to do, they have to take these steps, and it's like, okay, are they?
Yeah.
It's not that we don't think they can be good. It's just, but are they going to do what we need them to do if we're going to be good? Because it depends on also what your expectations are. I
Yes.
think if you're thinking championship, Eastern Conference Finals, I think that's a little far fetched. But if you think playoffs, maybe second round, depending on matchups, because that's what depends on matchups and how things go. I mean,
Right.
that's more obtainable, And I know people, are also looking at, like, how is Trey going to want to stick around? I mean, for the most part, I feel like Trey, to me, is planning to play out his contract, and as long as the team is competitive,
Mm.
because I think that's what you do when you have stars in this window. They usually don't start really like pushing to potentially leave till like the end of the second contract. That's
Yeah.
why I
Right.
said it's a unique situation, because Trey, I think, is like a few years out from that. Yet
Yeah.
we're already thinking he'll just want to leave this year. I'm like, well, no. I mean, Hawks are firmly in control of Trey Young. So unless he says to them, "Get me out of here, please," I don't see them feeling like we got to get him out of here. So
And not only that, I feel like they actually going through him to put this team together because I'm telling you, he has some kind of input as to who they filling this roster out with, and that's probably one reason why they won't trade Capella. It's probably because of Trey Young.
That could be. That's a good point, guys. I want to take care of some house maintenance. So just want to acknowledge some folks in the chat. Joe's Barbershop. Just want to shout out Justin Swisher, John Higgins, Rajat, I believe for life, Beckham Brown, Ramon Poser, T Terry. Really like that name, T Terry. Good name, sir. Appreciate you. And last but not least, DFU Dirty Fan United, my boy Chase. Now, guys, in this, you bring up some other questions, so I'm glad we're delving into this, and that is, we see that okay, it could be a couple years or not. Realistically, right? If we had to gauge, what's the best record you see this team doing? The best record, and Smitty, will start with you. Is it 40 games? Is it 50? Is it 60? Like, what is, everything goes well and like it should. Everything falls into place, no major injuries. What's your best assessment as to what our record is and where we end up, right? Um, yeah. So Smitty, we'll start with you.
Uh, I'm gonna go back around 500 again, and the reason why I say that is they really haven't made any big splashes. They lost Dejounte, which is I think going to be big, but when you add Dyson Daniels, a defensive 3-and-D guy, you have DeAndre Hunter, who we know now probably is going to be their sixth man. Um, Jalen Johnson, if he can take the next step, I think they can still be in the playoff chase. But with no big, real significant moves, I just see them around the same spot at probably 40 to 41 wins, 500 team, which to me is not bad. But like you said, it's about matchups. And they showed that they can hang with Boston because Boston, outside of Porzingis, is a pretty small team as well. So I'm going to go around 500. That's about best as I can give them because I got to see it shake out first. Now next year at this time, if they show me different, I could probably put them as a top 5 team. But with the move they made, I got to go right back around 500.
Bryce, your thoughts?
Um, I think if everything goes well, I think you could see 43 to 45.
Okay.
The reason why is also last time trade. I believe the last time trade was solo, quote unquote, star wise. They won 43 games, so they had a 500 record.
Right.
So technically, the last evidence we have of a trade solo team is a winning record. That's why I said 43 to 45.
Okay.
Like I said, you know, it kind of depends. I mean, obviously, the East is tougher. West is obviously tough. And there's going to be some interesting matchups there. But I think the team could kind of, if things work out, I think they'll be a much better defensive team. And I think that'll be the big thing. If everything works out, this Hawks team could be probably one of the best defensive teams they've had since Trae Young's been here. So that
Yeah,
could
I
be
agree with
big.
that.
That could be big for this team. And then obviously offensively, I think they're going to be I feel like they could still be a top 10 offense just because of Trae himself. He's elite playmaker. He can score the ball, and then also I think like I said, that's one thing Clint can coach is some offense. He knows how to do that. I mean, like I've told multiple times, like players have came out in interviews saying when they play the Hawks, they run some stuff that's just like that's really impressive. Like players are saying it, they know like okay, this man can he can coach some offense. So I think. And it's a more modern NBA offense too. I think that was one of the issues with Nate. Was just like, okay, this is like ISO old school. This isn't like innovative like today's offenses really are. So I think that I think those things could really help the Hawks be in that range. And then, like I said, depending on how bad or good the East is, that could vary from play-in team to maybe a 6 seed. I mean, the East, you don't have to win 55 games to be just in the top 4 potentially. Even sometimes, like you that 45 might be able to get you 7-6, depending on what's going on with the East.
Mm,
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
mm. Okay. So DeJounte leaves. That's about 20, 22 points walking out the door with him. Bryce, if I'm correct, your logic is, yeah, he's walking out with 20 points, but we're probably going to give up 20 points less, so it should even out and we should be okay. Is that your thought process with this team,
Um,
their their defense?
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously it's today's NBA too, so like people score a lot. It's just we just can't be getting into these 140, 150
Right.
matchups every other night. We can't do that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, for the most part, I mean, I just look at it like there are some players we're not sure about, and so that could also impact scoring and how the team does offensively. Like I said, I think they're really believing in what Quinn's going to coach up, and I think they're believing on the development of certain guys. Obviously, the key to the whole thing is Jalen Johnson to me, and what he becomes. Because if he becomes what they need him to become, that could really open the door for this team. Just because I know one thing people are saying with DJ gone is, oh, well, who's gonna like play, especially playoff time? Like, okay, the teams are gonna trap Trey. Who do we have?
Hmm.
Jalen. Like that's that. Like if like I and because remember, one of the most underrated skills Jalen has is a passer. He
Yep.
has good vision on the court. And I don't know if you guys remember, they did this. They did this a few times. I think this past season they wanted him to do more point forward stuff because they're trying to help him develop that part. But one thing Jalen's really good at is being a connector. A guy who they did this, and the one game I can point out is the playing game against the Miami Heat. And they use Jalen a lot like this. Is like a connector role where they would get the ball out of DJ or Trey's hands,
So
let
he can bring it up the
Jalen
floor. Uh-huh.
and then like they'll be like, let's say they let Trey bring up, and then like he'll be like Jalen like in the middle of the floor at the top of the key, and then they'll give it to Jalen, then they'll move, and then they'll still run play, and then Jalen just finds the right guy because Jalen can do that. So that way you can't just collapse on Trey or anybody like that. The issue is with Trey when we faced Miami Heat that other time, we really didn't have a guy who could do that. Jalen can do that, and now he's also more of a threat offensively. So now you get him like in the middle of the paint, he can drive on you, or he can find the open guy. And like I said, that's a way they can continue to also help maybe Trey be more off ball, and things of that nature. Maybe obviously shooters, bogey in the corner, something like that. So I think that to me is kind of what they're hoping on to replace. Obviously, they want higher points from Jalen, but I think the passing thing and the playmaking thing, they're hoping Jalen can take another step in as well, and could be one of those important skills that he could have for this team this year. And it's different because it's coming from a wing player; it's not coming from a guard, so it's a
Right.
different setup. It's like because now if you want to trap Trey, then they can get out to Jalen, and then, like I said, Jalen's probably our second best player. You have to give attention to Jalen. So now as a team, you got to decide: do we attack Jalen, try to get it out of his hands? But now he has the ability to kick it out because he's a good playmaker. So I think that in and of itself, I think is where I kind of feel like if that works out, they'll make those improvements within the team, and then they'll still work out. Like I said, it's a lot of it's just like there's a lot of like we have a plan. We're gonna hope the plan goes well. We're gonna hope these players improve to a certain point, and hope that gives us the success that we want, even with DJ gone.
And also if their defense gets better, that means more transition points. And when you talk about transition points, that's what Trey excels. Somebody that can facilitate the basketball in the transition game. I think that's going to be key as well because that adds more points to the team as well. So um, that's a great point, Bryce. Great point by Jada Johnson.
No, that really is. And it seemed like when we went on that run in 21, we had a lot of transition buckets. Or am I misremembering? Or because it feels that way. It feels like a lot of what we did was, we'd get down 20 points, and then Trey would wake up, and then the team would wake up. We'd start playing defenses, and we'd start, you know, on a fast break, kick it out for a three, boom. Trey goes in for a lob, boom, and the next thing you know, we're up by 10. So if we can get back to that, yeah, that's great, guys. What I want to know is who or whom, as my mother would say, who do we need to take that next step in order for this Hawk team to be a viable playoff team? We know we got Bogey, we know we got Hunter. Obviously, they got to step up. You can book Bodie. I mean Bogey for a certain amount of threes, certain amount of points. I think when Hunter's healthy, you can do that. Obviously, we got Trey, Capella, Okonwu. We know to expect for them, but we've identified JJ as having to take the next step. Who else do we need right now on this Hawks team that's, let's say, a second year player, right? Who else do we need to take a quantum leap or a large step in order for us to get to that next level that we're trying to get to? And Smitty, I'll start with you. Who do you think
I,
that
I would say Okongwu. If you're putting all your marbles into Okongwu and Capella at the five, I think Onyeka has to take the biggest step because we talk about Clint getting older, and we seen to me he took a step back last year. He's still outside of just doing layups and dunks. He's not a mid range shooter, and that's something I think Okongwu is uh, trying to develop into getting his jump shot. And if he can do that, his mid range shot, I think he could be the key to unlocking his team because I just said with transition, you got to have somebody to be able to protect the rim. And since they didn't go out and get a center, you're going to roll on Yucca and put your marbles into that bag. Hey, he's got to come through. He can average 15 points a game and maybe 10 rebounds. I think he's doing his job. But as far as Capella, I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket anymore. So it has to be on Yucca because he's the future at the center position if they don't make another move for a big man. So he's got to be that guy to protect the rim.
okay? Bryce, thoughts?
Um, I'll go in a different direction. I'll say Kobe got to take another step.
That's what I was thinking.
Um, just
Hmm.
because of the dilemma at that backup point guard position for years,
Yes.
and just him being able to run the offense. Obviously being a good point of attack defender. Obviously, when I'm assuming you'll see this at times. We'll see if that actually happens. But I mean, you're going to have potential lineups with Dyson and Kobe on the floor. And so obviously defensively, you're expecting a lot of, success there. But offensively, obviously, if Dyson's not going to be that guy offensively, you need Kobe maybe, depending again, who's also at 3 through 5. You guys see Kobe kind of be more aggressive. I know one of his things is that he tries to work on a mid range shot. That's something that he uses a lot, and also obviously the 3 point ball because Quinn loves 3 point shooting. So I think one big thing for that is just him continuing to improve as offense player and just being able to run the show, being able to make plays. And listen, he's going to face different types of things. Teams are going to pressure him at times. They're going to try to make him make quick decisions and try to see where he is with his processing and how he sees the floor. And if he can improve that, I think that can lead to success for the Hawks. Just because at the end of the day, when Trae Young comes off the floor, I always tell people like, listen, he's your star player. Like you're not going to maintain to that level what he does,
Right.
but like you don't want it to be like, oh my God, we can't score a bucket or we can't do anything when he's off the floor. You
Right.
just need him to you just need to basically get to a steady maintaining status when he's off. And Kobe's going to be tasked with doing that. That's why I said one of the biggest things I want to see in the summer league is how he is initiating offense because and listen, the summer league they're running some of the concepts they're going to run with the main team.
Yep.
So we'll be able to see like, okay, how does he do? Now, obviously the talent is different, so obviously that can make a difference. But for the most part, he's playing with Gay, he's playing with EJ Liddell now, who's made the team. He's playing with the second round pick Ricochet. So like these are guys that could be who a couple of those guys people he could be playing with.
Yeah.
So you'll get an idea to see how he kind of deals with everything, and if that ends up going up well, I think that could be big for the team because then it just helps them solve that position, and it helps them now know, okay, we have a guy that we can trust. Because listen, there
Right.
may be a game this year where Trae, like injuries happen, like Trae may just need to sit a game banged up. That happens. You get banged up throughout the season. Okay, we'll give you a game off, and Kobe got to be the starter. So those are going to every rep he has is going to be very important to show them like, hey, can you run this show while Trae is gone or out for a game and still be able to show us. Remember, he was a lottery pick
Mm.
technically, so like obviously they feel very highly about him as well.
Okay.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point.
Yeah. No, you guys have both been outstanding. Makes a good point, or at least one that we should think about. NBA development isn't linear, so asking first and second year players to make meaningful contributions to winning is bad planning by the front office. I'm gonna throw this out to you guys. I kind of I feel like he's wrong in some ways. In some ways, I agree with him, and in some ways, I don't agree with him. But I'm gonna throw it out to you guys. Smitty, what do you think about that? You think he's right, or what are your thoughts on that?
Chester, I agree with you. I'm gonna go 70-30. Um, it's just like any other sport, man. If you draft somebody, they have to fit what you're trying to do. Offensively and defensively, they have to fit what the coach like to do, and then in development, that's how you really judge development. If he fits with a coach's philosophy and that plays to his strength, that tells you exactly what he's really going to be. Because you see players sometimes play bad over here, but when they go to this type system, they're just a different type player. So it's just all in if they buy into the philosophy and it fits their type game. With Ricochet, um, I was kind of worried a little bit because I think he needs to be in a more wide open style offense because of the way he catches and shoots the basketball. But at the same time, like Bryce said, when you have a guy like Trey Young and Jalen Johnson who can facilitate the basketball, they'll find him one way or the other to put up points. So yeah, I agree with that. 70-30 is my, you know, percentage with that, but I agree with it to a certain extent. And you're right. First and second year players, unless they're just superstar players coming out of college and high school, you can't expect much from them.
Okay, Bryce, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it could really go either way. I mean, obviously, you would think usually no, because when you think of rebuilding teams and teams that tank, that's usually who they have, or like or whatever. But I think Smitty made a great point about fit. I think that's a big part of it too. I think this team fits better right now than they did last year with the young players entering the lineup now. So I think it makes things interesting for sure. Because you have, like I said, you have a star player. You have some good, you have a good 6 man in Bogey. You have a decent starter in Hunter. You have, you know, Jalen Johnson, who is an emerging player. I mean, you have some pieces. Is it this because this isn't a okay, we're just 1 through 5 starters, one first, second year, third year players, do something. You have some guys, and then you're kind of trying to plug in these first and second year players to your team and trying to be like, all right, where can they help us here? Can we fit here? Can this work? Is this going to help maybe this player be better? So I think it just kind of depends. I mean, because really your first and second year players are going to play your bench. That's who really going to be where your first and second year players are. The
Right.
starting lineup pretty much is probably going to be all the guys who have experience, your veterans,
Right.
Trey, even Bogey. I mean, Dyson's been in the league for 3 years, so he's outside that 2 year range. And then Bogey's been in the league for a while. Hunter, Jalen, he's entering his fourth. Obviously, if it's Capella, he's been here for a while. Even Okongu, he's been here for a while. So, like, it's really your bench guys, which, I mean, that may be ideal to kind of allow those types of players off your bench. Because, again, you're not asking them, hey, we need you to be a starter for us. We're just asking you, hey, we have a role we need you to play. We need you to play this role. If you can do this, this will help the team, and then we can mismatch. It's kind of like this team's mismatching young players with some of their older players and kind of trying to make it fit through that, and trying to like connect that together. So, like I said, I mean, obviously, depending on, like I said, it kind of just depends on how the team is constructed,
Mhm.
and that can determine, okay, can the first or second year players be meaningful to the team? I think that's what you're depending on. You're hoping, and the thing too is like Kobe, he played a little last year. Vic Krejci, I forget what year he is, but I mean, he pretty much played like first significant minutes
Mhm.
in his career last year like that, and I think we're pretty high on him. I think we're high on Dyson. I think we're high on Gay. Obviously he's probably the biggest wild card. out of all the young players, just because we have no clue. He didn't play a lot during his rookie year. So I think overall, I think the team is that can go either way. That can be right, but that also can be wrong. Because it's not like we're asking them to be starters, play 30 plus minutes in first, second year and do something. We're asking them to come off the bench, play a role, fit within the scheme of the team, and then see what happens.
Okay, that's a fair point. I agree with them to the extent it is a bit of poor planning. I mean, I think we could all, whether we want to publicly admit it or not, I think we could say that there were some missteps as to how we got here. But what I'm looking at is I kind of feel like the inception, conception, you know, the introduction of the super teams has led to the stunting of growth to first and second year players because you just don't get the opportunities, right? To me, I feel like, especially if you're drafting first through, let's say, 5, if you're drafting a guy, picks 1 through 5, he needs to see significant time that first year. That's my opinion. That's not always the case in the NBA, right? That's not always the case. And to your point, Bryce, you brought up Creechy. If we did not have the injuries that we had last year, I don't think Creechy gets those opportunities. And look at that. You got that on the bench. You don't even know what you have. Why? Because you haven't given that guy the opportunity. Why? So I don't like that we're in this situation. I'm such a hypocrite. I don't like that we're in this situation that we have to do it. Like I said, I'm a hypocrite. I know. I am. I can admit that. But I think that more teams should do it because you got untapped talent that's on the bench that you don't know anything about. You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So I agree with Chester to a certain extent. We are here because of poor planning. But I do think if you don't put these guys in a position, you won't know what you have. And guys, we could have a championship team. Just kidding. We could have a playoff team this year. Maybe a team that wins a couple of series if we can develop these guys. I don't know that there's an emphasis on development in the NBA. I guess that's really where I'm going. To me, in the NBA, it's either you got it or you don't, right? There's some players that hate rookies. Like, who was the guy that Quinn replaced? Nate McMillan? He hated rookies. I don't care what anybody. Nate hated rookies. Hated them. Hated them. I'm surprised he didn't make him take a different plane. He was not a fan of rookies. Because he didn't play him. He did. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. Whatever. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. Okay, so to me, that's a waste. Why draft a guy if he's just going to sit there for 3 years? And hope that he doesn't have to come in the game. You're not doing him a service, and you're really not doing your team a service, because if you have to use him, you're going to suffer because you've not put him in that position. So I guess my point is there's a balance, right, between winning and development. And I'd like to see more NBA teams get back to it. We won't. Because, again, the thing that's germane to the NBA is you pretty much know who's going to win from the beginning of the year to the end. If you give me a list of 5 or 7 teams, I think everybody at the beginning of the year said Boston was probably top 3 as to who would win a championship, right? And they won. Every now and then they're outliers, but this is because of the super team. And maybe this whole second apron or whatever is done to discourage that, and maybe that's for the betterment of the game. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Guys, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on that, and then we can get into shout outs because, like I say, I have to roll at 12. Bryce, do you think the NBA in its current state is better? Or would it be worse if we begin to see more development? I'm not saying total development, right? I'm not saying kick a bunch of guys out and we got some, G League. I'm saying if there was a balance between winning and development, do you think overall we'd have a better product? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they could that could definitely mean that for the league. I think there's so many good players who just don't play in this league
Yeah,
just because they're buried on their team because their team has people in front of them. Like people, it's funny because we were criticizing, Quinn for having the rookies down the G League, right? But people forget. I can't remember which team it was, but somebody had their top 10 pick in the G League the whole year, basically.
yeah,
Like that's why they created the G League because it's like, listen, if you don't want to put that rookie in that position right off the bat, you're like, oh, we put him in the G League, get coached, learn. We're doing the same stuff down there. That way, and then also you can put him in different positions. I always said like the G League is effective for this. Like when Kobe goes to the G League, he's probably the best player on the G League team. So he will be now used
He
as a
was.
best player
He
on the
was
G
the
League
best
team
player.
role. Where
Yeah.
when he comes to the Hawks, he's now playing you are a backup point guard role. You are not the best player on your team role. Now you have to adjust, but take what you learned and apply that in your position, right? And so again, that's why the Hawks brought up the G League coach from last year to the staff this year. He was a part of Gay's development, Crazy's development, Kobe's development, Steph's development, things of that nature to keep familiarity. I think with the new CBA, I think you will see that just because, again, can't pay guys all the time. And so some teams may be willing to go more of the younger route because of that. And, so I think realistically overall, I think that's I think it'd be good for the NBA product. It'll be good for players just to get the ability to be able to play and just be able, because like I remember, I mean, I'm not gonna go to a list, but I just know there's been multiple guys who people have talked about can play, has talent, can do something, but just don't play because the way the team is, it's like that's not how it is. There's guys who are hooping in summer league, hooping in the G League, and people are like, why are they not playing on the main roster? And it's just like it's not the way the team is set up. I mean, you're not just going to force this player out of his position.
right.
As much as we may think we should do that, they're just not. So I think the league will go a little bit towards more development because of that, because you can't just super team your way out of stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to make balanced rosters. So that's going to lead to the ability of more younger players getting more ability to play and being able to execute.
And I
Agreed.
think good thing for
Agreed. Excellent point.
Smitty, your thoughts?
I agree with what Bryce said, and if y'all remember, development is the best way to go because Celtics drafted Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they gave them time to develop and just kept putting pieces around them until they found the right pieces. And y'all remember they had Kyrie Irving at one point. So until you put that right team around your star players and you build through the draft the correct way. And I got to give a shout out to Danny Ainge. He's built teams all over the league.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah, when you talk about G League, and I think the Hawks, they've done it the last couple of years, man. Kobe played well in G League. Jalen Johnson, he dominated in G League. So maybe that's the right step to take, and maybe they've learned something from that. So again, maybe they take a big step this year. Who knows? So yeah, development is the best way to go, and I think honestly, and I agree with Bryce, that's the way the league needs to go. You even gonna see it with Bronny James. He probably gonna play in G League most of the year. So and one thing about it, man, when they took out straight from the high school to the NBA, the G League was the perfect option for those type players who weren't developed enough to transition to that speed of the game or that type of play of the game. So yeah, I agree with what Bryce said 100%.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, this has been excellent. I appreciate your time today. I thank you both. Smitty, Bryce, if you guys could tell our audience, although most of them know already, but if you could tell our audience where they can find you and just give you shout outs. Bryce, we'll start with you.
Yes, sir. Y'all can follow me all across all social media. Bryce underscore 2K, BRICEY underscore 2K. Also my YouTube as well. Or if you want to look up my Hawks podcast, Believe in Hawks, BLEAV. So you can catch all the latest around our team whenever stuff happens. Try to get something out for you guys for show. And also, obviously, Falcon season is about to kick off. So about to get some content out on YouTube for that. So definitely go over there and subscribe, as we are, I believe, 49 subscribers away from 1,000. So appreciate you guys being helping me reach the goal. And I just want to give a shout out to the panel, Smitty, Terry. Appreciate you guys letting me talk Hawks with you guys. Once again, always love having conversations, and everybody who supports all of our channels, all of our work. really, really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to them as well. So, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And ladies and gentlemen, not only like and subscribe this page, which is for my ATL Sports One at gmail.com, but please feel free to go to all of Bryce's socials and especially his YouTube and like and subscribe. Smitty Gay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, find me on Smitty Sports Machine on YouTube, at Fatboy Slim _21 on Twitter, where I'm always blowing it up. But shout out to my crew, my boy Berto, Mr. 95 North, Chris, Mr. A1 Forever, our boy RG ATL for life, and Bryce, Uncle Steve, Big Low Country. I mean, let's get it, GA, ATL, GA faithful, man. We got, hey, man, look, the Atlanta sports scene on this content creating is deep,
Deep,
man. And
deep.
we always click up. We always have fun, man, because we love to talk sports. But trust me, this season gonna be game changing for Hawks and Falcons content creators, because I think both of these teams are gonna take a big step forward this year, and we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, man, y'all go to Smitty Sports Machine on YouTube. Please go to Terry's page for my ATL Sports One, and please subscribe. Go to Believe Sports, believe in Hawks, believe in Falcons. Shout out to my boy Ovi Mahaley, man. He's always doing his thing on Believe Sports, man. So shout out to y'all on Believe Sports, man. And please go check them out on YouTube and all streaming platforms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, and one last thing, gentlemen. I'm also, those of you know, I'm a member of One Time for the Fan podcast that usually airs Sunday nights at 8, Wednesday nights at 8, Friday morning at 9, and we're trying to add one more, but I'll let Jack get into that. But Bryce, Jack did want me to make one comment to you and Smitty specifically, and that is that we should have traded Capella. Darn it, for BI, or either way, we should get Capella out of here. That's his words. But he wanted to make sure that I let you know that Capella needs to be gone, sir. So I don't know how you
Hey,
feel
well,
about
I mean, if the owner wanted him, and then we could do it. We could just talk. That's it.
I don't know how you feel about it, but he was like, "Hey, make sure you let him know." Because I said, "Hey, Jack, you want to come on?" He was like, "No, but make sure you let him know." So I'm telling the world, okay.
Hey,
Jack feels like
like I like
time.
I said before, Terry, when we drafted Ricochet, Brandon Ingram was
That
that was
was
a
it.
no.
That was it. I got it. I got it. No, in all serious, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm humbled that you guys would share this space with me. I'm so appreciative. To the fans
No
out
doubt.
there in the chat, thank you all. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Want to thank God for this opportunity. Thank Him for waking me up. Without Him, there are no opportunities, and I would not be here. Got to thank Him. Want to thank my family. Obviously, my one time for the fan crew, Mr. Jack Spade, Carrie, Chase, Bodie, everybody. Appreciate y'all. My 95 North people. Obviously, want to thank y'all. Obviously, Bryce, Mark Cheney, if you out there, Chris, Berto, Big Country, Uncle Steve, who is hilarious. Uncle Steve is hilarious, man. I got to get him on one of these. If you've never experienced Uncle Steve, and he and Big Country and Smitty together, forget about it. Like whatever you're talking about, you're gonna forget it because it's just that funny. Like it's
Man,
fun, right? Bryce, I would have. I don't know if you've ever been on a show with them, but I would invite you next time. Please, Smitty. You ain't even got to
oh
invite me.
man,
I just want to watch. But the next time you have a show with Uncle Steve and Big Low, please invite Bryce. It's
yeah,
it, it's the best thing going on YouTube. Like it's
yeah.
hilarious.
It
Watch
can
them.
go three ways. It can go from Atlanta sports talk to Def Comedy Jam to Soul Train. So
God.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Bryce, it's a treat, man. I've experienced it twice. And the last time my stomach, my chest, my cheeks hurt for like 3 days from laughing. So I'm being serious. I'm not being fun. I'm being serious. Like my wife came up here and was like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you so loud?" And I'm like, "It's them." So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there,
Yeah,
guys.
man. Yeah, we have fun like that, man. We click up. Hey,
Hey,
nothing but laughs.
Bryce, I'm telling you, you got to experience once in your life. Put it on your bucket list. Anyway,
Yes, sir.
guys,
I will do it.
so much. Appreciate that. And let's keep doing it. We'll link up again. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's hit